All right, man, let's get into this thing. The Cowboys are off the bye. Whew, we're back to football. I said this the other day. Somebody got mad at me. They're like, "Why you always got to be so negative, Jess?" I said, remember there was a time in Cowboy country where you would get nervous anytime the Cowboys had a bye. You get nervous anytime the Cowboys had a little bit of free time off, because those folks couldn't stay out the precinct. They was always getting arrested, pulled over. Something was happening. So it's good that we're past those days. But the Cowboys are back from the bye. They're getting ready for a big, huge Sunday night football game. Just a little bit of a note. The Cowboys should be getting some players back after this bye. Micah Parsons spoke, and he kind of said it's still up in the air, but he may be trending towards coming back and playing. That's a good thing. Deron Bland, another one. They haven't given a definitive on him yet. He's now been 8 weeks since he had his surgery on his foot. He should be a guy maybe trending back. And those are other guys who may had some injuries. Tyler Guyton, who was dealing with the knee before the bye. Hopefully he got a chance to get healthy. So you're gonna get Kalen Carson. You're gonna get a bunch of guys potentially coming back off injury. I hope that helps, because they have a big game this Sunday night against the Niners, who, if we're being honest, while the Niners are the Cowboys' nemesis and their boogeyman, if there's ever a time, in a moment in history where the Niners may be a tad bit vulnerable, now's the time. Now is the time. I'm not saying that the Cowboys will win. I'm just saying if there was ever a time where the Niners are reeling a little bit, some injuries and some other things, now might be the time. But it's going to take a collective unit to do so. But before we get into that, I want to just recap something Troy Aikman said last week. That's right, that Troy Aikman, the 3-time Super Bowl winning, Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor, Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman, I'm going to read this verbatim because I don't want to mess this up, right? I don't want to mess folks' words up. So I want to read this to what Troy said. Of course, Troy talked about last week on his weekly spot on a local radio station here in Dallas, The Ticket. Troy said, "I think the routes are terrible." Speaking of the Cowboys receivers. He says, "I think they run terrible routes, and I've thought this beyond this year. I think CD, in particular, has to improve his route running." And he went on more to talk about it, how guys are coming off the line of scrimmage lazy, and how guys aren't running their route if they feel like they're not getting the football. And so, of course, the guys were on the bye week, and some of them heard it, and some of them sat with it. And Mike McCarthy, who was on the podium today, he had a chance to respond to Troy Aikman's comments. And Mike McCarthy said, Troy's statement in particular, "I don't agree with the word selection. I don't agree with the word selection." I'll continue. "But there's definitely a need for improvement in every position, not just one position that he commented on. So I think you look at the whole picture and you break it down, and that's what coaches do. That's a process. There's a process to it. There's always a plan." I want to read that first line again from Mike McCarthy. He said, "I don't agree with the word selection." Never in that statement does he say, "I don't agree with what Troy said." He said, "I don't agree with the word selection." And when Mike McCarthy talked about this, and it's more, I'll address the Mike McCarthy one first. "I don't agree with the word selection." And maybe that's the word terrible, right? Maybe there's a word that he says certain things, but the statement overall, because then Mike goes on and he says, there's definitely need for improvement in every position. Like, this is media coach speak saying yeah, Troy, you're right. A little bit harsh in the words that you probably used, but I'm going to put this thing as a whole, and we all need to improve. But I think Mike was trying to cover his tail. Because at the end of the day, this is Mike's offense. You are the offensive coordinator, and you're the head coach. So if all these things, when you start talking about, it's one thing when you start talking about players. Players, I exclude Mike from that conversation because we know that that's Jerry and that's Steven, right? They make it known that they're the guys who handle building rosters, drafting, trading, signing. So I take Mike McCarthy out of that part. But when we start talking about effort, when we start talking about accountability, when we start talking about things like that, scheme, that's on you, Michael from Pittsburgh. That falls squarely on your shoulders. So while Troy is talking about the receivers, you come in defense because in essence, he's talking about you too. He's talking about you because you're the thermometer. Like you're the thermostat of this thing. You control the temperature of this team, especially offensively. Big dog, you got to find a way to get this thing right. This one sits squarely on your shoulders. When you start talking about receivers and effort and things like that, this ain't got nothing to do with Jerry. In a sense. This has something to do with you. This has something to do with the coaches that you hired. Because I'll continue to say this. There's two things that are happening. You're either allowing it or you're coaching it. Because it's not just CD. I think Troy used CD because he's the wide receiver one, right? He's the catalyst. He's the guy in the forefront. But I think it's others as well. And how I know it's others is because it didn't just ruffle the feathers of Mike McCarthy. Locker room opened up today, and I don't want to get words incorrect. So, in addition to Mike McCarthy commenting on the Troy Aikman comments, so did one Kavontae Turpin. And Kavontae said, Troy, whatever he fake think he know outside the building, that's his opinion. But in this, we are all in here together. We're trying to be better and we're trying to be better and do what we do to get a win. There's moments in time where sometimes you got to go and get big bro. Or you got to go and get big homie. And Kavontae, I don't think this is a conversation that you should be having. I get it. I get it. I get it. You come at one, you come at all of us. I understand it. But you have to understand the position that you put yourself in. You're not up in the ladder high. I come from a time in a place in history where there was a grown folks table at family events, Sunday dinners, cookouts, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter dinners. There was a grown folks table. Now that was a grown folks table. Things was said and talked about at the grown folks table that grown folks talked about. And then there was the kids table. That was a table where until you arrived at a place to be at the grown folks table and have those grown folks conversation, auntie, your mama, your uncle, for sure your grandmother, your grandfather, they sent you over there to have kid conversations. And this feels like when Troy's speaking, that's grown folks table conversation. When Troy is saying certain things, because I like to believe Troy has an eye for these type of things, may have been around the block a time or two before. That's grown folks conversation. Mike McCarthy could comment on it. Mike sits at the grown folks table. You got to go get the big homies. Like this is a response comment for Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb. Because he said CeeDee by name. So if you say me by name, then I get a chance to respond. If he choose to do so. Kavontae, my guy. Don't know if this is the conversation that you should be in. That's grown folks table conversation. Your table's over there. You either got to go get big homie and let big homie know, hey, yo, they said this about us, big homie. Or go get big bro, like, man, big bro, they talking about us around the corner. And let them circle the block and address the comment. And this is the part of the problem somewhat in today's society that we live in, is sometimes just everyone feels that they have room to speak on certain things. And you're probably sitting here, and if you see this, or anyone's going to see this, you're probably going to say, well, Jesse, who the hell are you to speak at it? Oh, I'm media, so technically I get a seat at the big table. Ain't no little bro in me, dog. But there's just certain things I just feel like you gotta have a certain level of je ne quoi. What is it? Je ne sais quoi. Whatever that saying is. You gotta have a certain level of. You just ain't quite. You're not big table material right now. And I say that respectfully, with all due respect, Kavontae. This isn't about me trying to disrespect you. I'm just saying that. Let the big homies handle that. When Troy speaks about a matter, and I get it, he said the receivers, and you fall into that category. But you're a couple rungs down in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a few folks ahead of you that might have a better chance at having a prosperous comment. I don't think that's your place in that. But who am I, right? I'm just a media guy, right? I'm just an undrafted guy who got in the league off a TV show. Cool. That's cool. But I'm always going to feel how I feel, and I'm always going to say what I'm going to say. I just don't feel like you ain't big table. You ain't grown up table yet, conversationless. You still, grown folks, they got the ribs and stuff. You got hot dogs and hamburgers. Y'all just, the levels are just not there. Like, whatever. You got to say what you want anyway. But that's just how I feel about that. But hopefully, these are comments that Troy makes that got the attention of Mike McCarthy, that caught the attention of Kavontae Turpin, and I'm sure many others on the offensive side. You may hear Dak when he speaks. You may hear CeeDee speak, because they're going to ask CeeDee. Troy mentioned CeeDee's name. They're going to ask CeeDee. You'd be a bad journalist if you didn't. So either CeeDee's going to respond or have no comment. Either Dak's going to respond or have no comment. If you really want the messages, if you really want the messages, Dak and Troy, they got a friendship. And maybe they had a cold beer together, or conversation together, or maybe Troy reached out to Dak and had a conversation. I'm not saying that he did. If you just want messages. Because sometimes you use other avenues to speak for what you really want to say. That is the way of the 2024 athlete. The days of you and I sitting down man to man, face to face, not everybody has those anymore. That trend, that level of cloth that people used to be cut out of, that ain't. Nah, they got to send a DM or a subliminal tweet or an emoji or a TikTok or something like that to express themselves. I'm being honest. Like that's the way of communication for a lot of the younger athletes in today's generation. I'm not waving my fist and saying get off my lawn. I'm just expressing how things happen in 2024. They rather go that route than come directly to the man and go, yo, me and you got an issue. You and I we need to sit down and we need to hash this out. We need to have this tough conversation. That's just not the way of the land. It isn't. You even have grown folks now, right? The once people who you looked at as OGs, they've fallen into the trap of the social media subliminals and all that kind of stuff. Instead of coming right to the source and say, we got a problem. Let's have a conversation. But if I'm being messy, Jesse, I'm saying that maybe possibly that these conversations had and Troy was just like, hey, this is what I feel. And sometimes, you know how somebody be like, oh yeah, that's like what my family say, what my friends say is not indicative of what I really believe and feel. Okay. Yeah, because somebody that spends that much time with you and is around you this much and you guys share, intimate conversations and intimate time together and all those things together. Yeah, you've never heard them say that before and they've never heard you say that before. So what they say, you're right. It's not indicative of what you believe in here and all that kind of stuff. So I get it, sure. But that's just me if I wanted to be messy, Jess. Sometimes that's just how they function. They get their word across through the media. And now that it's been out there, I'm sure Dak is probably like, if we're being honest, Troy might be on to something. Just saying. I'm just saying. I don't think that Dak would have a total pushback on the things that Troy said. Yeah, maybe he goes, the wording you used was a little bit harsh. But Dak, who we all know takes hella heat for anything that goes wrong offensively. He throws an interception. Damn you, Dak. It's $60 million bum. Incompletion. Damn you, Dak. $60 million bum. Lose a game. Damn you, Dak. $60 million bum. Guys don't go out there before they're supposed to bum. Damn you, Dak. You took $60 million. You ruined our team. And again, we live in a day and time where film is available to everybody. And while Troy may be watching other games, his heart is a Cowboy. So I'm sure in his film watching time, he may pop on a tape or two. Or while he's studying another team, he might have, he's watching Baltimore as they get ready for a game. You don't think he probably watched one of those? He went back a couple games and watched Cowboys versus Baltimore and looked and go, what are these receivers doing? If I was a quarterback, I'd be bleeping them. That's poor effort. That's bad effort. That's this, that's that. But anyway, that's being me. That's being messy, Jess.